first thing with that. Now, I wanted to go straight to the invasion of Iran by the Mongols. I'm not going to go over the invasion of any other country. I don't care for the purpose of this course. Yes, Al?
They were riders?
Mounted archers. Mounted means that they're going to be, in the sense of question, they'll be riding horses. Okay? It's said about Mongols that they did everything on their horseback. Eat, sleep, drink, copulate, defecate, the whole thing. Okay? I don't want to know if that's true, I don't care, but that's what they said about it. Okay? And they were taught to ride from a very early age, and they were expert cavalry. Now, first of all, there is no single invasion of the Muslim world by the Mongols. There's no single invasion of the Muslim world by the Mongols, but it's a series of incursions into Iran. It's a series of incursions into Iran. At first, the Mongols withdrew after raiding, plundering, and destroying. So the Mongols will first withdraw after raiding, plundering, and destroying. Only later will they become an occupying power. And when they're an occupying power, of course, when the Mongols are an occupying power, they're compelled to establish a formal administrative network. Now, I want to talk to you about how the Mongols could affect Iran in particular. Okay, in 1220, Genghis Khan's army is going to destroy the following cities in Iran. The cities of Mar or Mer, either one I'll accept. M-A-R-V or M-E-R-V. Nishapur, Balkh, B-A-L-K-H. Herat. If some of them sound Afghan, that's correct. Some of them are in Afghanistan, but back then they fell within the cultural orbit and sway of Iran. And the city of Tus, T-U-S. In Iran, these were your principal centers of urban civilization and erudition. Now, Khorasan will be occupied. Khorasan will be occupied. Heavily taxed territory. Khorasan, remember, is in the east. The Mongols are coming from the east. They're moving westward. So they're going to hit Khorasan first. Here's where Marv is. Here's Balkh. Okay? These are the areas that are going to be crushed by the Mongol juggernaut first. For Western Iran, that situation will be fluid as upheaval in the east. Western Iran's situation will be fluid as upheaval in the east. It's going to send a refugee wave westward. Look, a lot of people are scared shit of the Mongols as well as should be. Everyone dies. No one wants to die a painful death. No one wants to have their skin ripped off their body like a rabbit. Okay? The Mongols do this because they want to rule by terror. You see what I did to him? That could be you. Okay? Fall in line. So what's going to happen is Turkomans, who are migratory Turks that will fall under the aegis of Islam, are going to flee Eastern Iran, and they're going to hit Western Iran just to be safe. So what's going to happen is these Turkomans will settle wherever they could, meaning they're going to be displacing the former occupants.
When they come to Mongols, they don't even realize it.
Unless you surrender.
And if you surrender, they think it's just part of all these things.
We'll talk about that in a little while, but at least you have your life to hope for a project, right? Yes?
The army doesn't run it.
Good question. Usually, women and children being dependent on their husbands would tend to follow what their husbands did. If the husbands surrendered, the females and of course the progeny will surrender. If the male chose to fight and they lost, the women and children throw away their husbands and fathers. Okay. Mongols are not what you call sentimental. I'll talk to you about what basically Timur, who was a Mongol Turk, did with some children that surrendered to him, and it wasn't pretty. And this took place in Armenia, but we'll talk about that later. Now, what's going to happen is the Turkomans settle wherever they could, and they're going to displace the former occupants, and they will wreak havoc in Western Iran almost as much as the Mongols would wreak havoc in Eastern Iran, because the Turkomans are basically cutting out, and they're going to chase other people off their lands, hoping that they can escape the Mongols. So think of it almost like having a billiard ball hit another one. It sets a whole amount of people in motion. Okay? I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Khan in South Africa. That was the crushing in Bantu that was fomented by Shaka Zulu in his Zulu hegemony. But it's actually very similar to the way the Mongols basically fought. It sent a lot of African tribes hurrying just to keep their lives, get out of the paths of the invaders. You're going to see the same thing here. So it's going to send all of Iran into chaos and upheaval. Okay, it's not a pretty picture. Now, very little is known about the 30 to 40 years between this period and the final advance on the Abbasid Caliphate by the grandson of Genghis Khan, whose name is Hulagu.
Can you repeat that 30 and 40 years? There's little known about it.
About what happens in the Middle East between the raids of Genghis Khan and Hulagu's final assault on the Abbasid Caliphate.
Why? Because they come back to Asia.
I think I'll write a history. But you know what? I don't know. I'd rather keep going rather than have a Mongol arrow on my ass. So maybe what I'll probably do is try to survive first and write a history if I manage to survive. Because quite frankly, in times like this, it's a time of violence, burning, upheaval. If there were written records, chances are they're destroyed. This is going to be similar to periods of evil like the European Dark Ages, the Dorian invasions in Greece, things like that, where you see a dearth of literary sources because, quite frankly, people are more engaged in the struggle for survival. Okay? Listen, you're not going to be basically on the internet, I hope, or on, Facebook, talking about what kind of day you had if you're seeing bombs going off in your neighborhood, right? You're going to cut out, I would hope. Okay? Now, with regard to Hulagu's final advance, we'll talk about that. First thing I want to do is tell you why the relatively small armies of Mongols and the relatively small will be successful in subjugating Iran. I'm going to give you reasons for that. Okay? Number one, the first reason is a policy of terrorism. Okay? Now,
how is it terror?
Terrorism. Okay? A word you should be very familiar with living in the 21st century America. You hear that every 2 freaking fucking seconds. Okay? Now, basically, maybe it's me, but this is the way I think. Okay? All war involves a certain amount of terror. Would you not concur with it? People tend not to like being bombed, shot at, knifed, shot with arrows, having their homes burned. Most people tend not to like it. Okay? to a certain extent, all war is going to involve terrorism. Okay? When I say terrorism here, I mean a specific type. This is calculated cruelty. Okay? This means in effect that there's going to be torture involved for those people that surrender. There's going to be the extermination of large groups of people that resist, regardless of age or gender. A child will be killed, a newborn infant will be killed just as easily as an adult male warrior by the Mongols. The Mongols do this deliberately. The Mongols do this deliberately because they want to make sure that word gets around from eyewitnesses who survive and run that you don't mess with the Mongols. You will cut you open, you will kill you. Okay? Listen, when you're dead, you're dead. Nobody cares anymore once they're gone. This is a message not for the dead. This is a message for the living. You want to die? We can accelerate the process and we can make it very painful. Okay, and the Mongols were experts in doing stuff like that. They were incredibly cool, and I don't want to go over this. Generally speaking, if you wanted to really have background information on the Mongols, David Morgan's book with the imaginary title, The Mongols, published by Blackwell, it took him about a few days to figure it out, is worthwhile reading. Okay, Owen Lattimore also writes a very good history of the Mongols as well. And there's basically history of the Mongols by Mongol Turkish sources like Al-Juvayni's History of the World Continent. Okay, and there's also the secret history of the Mongols, which is primary sources.
Those are all Professor Savi.
Yes, I was hoping you wouldn't mention. I have all the respect in the world for Morris Wasabi, and he writes a very good book on Kublai Khan, and he is an expert on the Mongols, and he has a great deal of knowledge there. My personal feeling is that when it comes to writing ability, I tend to prefer the other sources. Don't tell me I said that.
But I read your book on the modern Mongols, and everybody rejected
The Modern Mongols is being a better book.
it.
Yeah, and he's a fine scholar. And if you were to read his book on the Mongols, I don't think you'd lose anything. It's not, I think what he wrote was bad. It wasn't. It's not fine piece of scholarship. I just think Morgan's and Lattimore's better. He does not like Owen Lattimore, and I do like Owen Lattimore. So yeah. Let me tell you something about academics. We could all sit down to dinner, and within 10 minutes, it's going to be basically a whole argument over stupid stuff. That's how academics always split hairs. Now that I have a lot of good leftists. You know,
It wasn't Barbara coaching that.
that was the only thing I didn't like about Lattimore, because I hated Shah and his gangster foreman. Yeah, and he was supported by the Green Gang, which was Shanghai Underground. Yeah, it's another thing. But I'm sure you would do justice to the one stuff. Yeah. And not to waste that. So you have a policy of terrorism. Then the other thing is that at this particular point, the Abbasid Caliphate is going through political fragmentation, very similar to the Western Roman Empire in the 400s. It's beginning to break apart into small polities, which means when things break apart, you don't have a strong united defense. Okay? So the Mongols are going to hit at a time when you're going to see the Muslim world disunited. Okay? The next point, which allows the Mongols to be extremely successful in taking over Iran, is that the steppe region going into West Asia, facilitates easy horse traffic. It facilitates easy horse traffic and provides good pasture for nomads. So this is perfect for the type of Mongol cavalry, you have a fairly easy highway for horses to traverse, that is okay, and you have good pasture for the horses. Okay, that's great for an equestrian evading horse. The next thing is at this particular point, the once flourishing cities and towns in the Middle East lose population. The demographics will begin to go down. This is number 4. Okay, stay with me. I want to force a Mongol invasion of your home. Yes.
Is it because the refugees?
It's a combination of refugees